This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, this is Christian Roldan.
And Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
And you're listening to...
This is Nos Arietes.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
Save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rangers through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nico Ladero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is good.
Seattle Sounders, the greatest MLS team in history.
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Portland can't say it's cheap.
You want to win? Let's see on a Sunday, bro.
Good for Seattle!
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes. I'm Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today to help preview the Sounders Minnesota United match on Saturday is Andy Greder of the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeremiah.
So it's been a bit of an interesting season for Minnesota.
Yeah.
I would say that it coming into the year, it felt like expectations were reasonably high. Then expectations got slammed to the ground when Reynoso wasn't around. But it's actually been pretty good on the field.
Yeah, they started off their first 5 games unbeaten. They went to Dallas, which bounced them in the first round of the playoffs and got a 1-0 result there. Like I said, they won or tied their first 5 games. And then things have kind of turned again, and they lost at Chicago, and then they lost at home to Orlando and gave up an 88th minute goal to drop points from winning positions in all 3 home games. They've only got 2 points through 3 home games. They've dropped, 2, 4, 6 points from winning positions at home. But yeah, it started off really, really well and really strong. They were the first team to give St. Louis a defeat. Obviously, then Seattle went and did that convincingly the following week. But yeah, it's been kind of up and down, and I think that's they're kind of coming back down to earth a little bit without Reynoso. Reynoso is such a creative attacking player that Minnesota has relied itself upon for a number of years now, 2.5 years, and without him, it's kind of been by committee. And that committee has not had a quorum a lot of times. It's been difficult to find goals, and that's where their biggest issue has been.
So how would you describe their playing style at this point?
Yeah, it's mostly a strong defensive structure, try to limit opportunities, kind of ride their luck defensively, and then spring on the counterattack. I think I haven't looked at the numbers this week, but going into last week, they were bottom of the league in possession. They're willing to let the other team have it. They're willing to sit back and keep their shape and then spring on the counterattattack. And to a certain degree, that's what they were doing with Reynoso before, but even more so now without him.
So I don't intend to get too deeply into the Reynoso situation, but how would you describe that to someone who is just sort of tuning in and looking at their roster and thinking, wait a minute, Emanuel Reynoso hasn't played any minutes for them this year?
Yeah, he's a 2-time MLS All-Star. He's, the team MVP. He's the reason that, they went to the Western Conference Finals and played Seattle a couple of years ago. Obviously, he had a great goal in that game before Minnesota collapsed.
And a great assist.
Yeah, and a great assist too. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he's really the player that stirs the drink. So he has an alleged assault that's hanging over his head in Argentina. That was an issue in December of 2021 that was affecting his return to Minnesota last season. but he was able to be cleared and come here and play the full season without any issues. He goes back to Argentina last winter, and then there's the threat of a trial. And it was thought that that was limiting his opportunities to be able to come to Minnesota. But that is not the case. He's free to be able to travel to the U.S., and he has been suspended by the league because of that freedom to travel and the willingness not to. So he's in Cordoba, and he is not in Minnesota for personal reasons. He's got some familial things that he's trying to deal with. The club has tried to be very, very patient with him and didn't encourage a suspension from the league for most of preseason to try to give him time to figure his stuff out. And he didn't. So then they suspended him, and they've been wanting and hoping and trying to have meetings and go down and visit him and try to figure out what he needs to try to be able to come back to Minnesota. And to this point, it hasn't worked out. You know, he's their most expensive player. He's one of their designated players. Like we talked about, his importance on the field. He is now blocking major roster type mechanisms for this team to move on without him. So they're trying to be patient, and obviously the primary window is closing here next week. And I think that they're putting things off until summer to figure out if they move on with life without Reynoso going forward, just because they know, what kind of a key Cam type player he is. And then also just the roster and budget things that are also associated with him.
So if you were to put on your, obviously he's not going to be back anytime immediately soon, but if you had to sort of put on a prediction hat, I'm sure you've been asked this probably, I'm guessing every week for the last 2 months, but where do you see this going? How does this end?
Yeah, it's been a saga for sure. And it seems like at times it's, down around, 5%, 0%. It really looks bleak. And then there are other times where there are encouraging things that I'm hearing, and it looks like, hey, maybe he's going to be on the next flight north. And it's been interesting to see that it's kind of varied as widely as it has. And I think, some people are like, hey, when does the telenovela come out on this?
Right.
When does the big expose come? And I think it's not as dramatic as that. I don't see the reasons surrounding it, having that kind of drama for, big kind of, piece like that. But I think there is a lot of intrigue, and there is a lot of touch and go and moments of positivity and moments of despair. And it varies widely, even on the week.
So looking at it in the more immediate terms, how much of a distraction has this been for the team?
Yeah. I think it's been something that they were asked about a lot early, right? It was, when is he coming? How are you going to play without him? And then I think it was a bit of a sigh of relief, maybe, to see them, and sign of confidence that the sum of the parts are bigger than him, in the way that they started, and being able to go to St. Louis and get a result there and do it in a strong way. I think you saw, after that game, they had a bit of a dance party in City Park, and you could really see kind of a collective, a relief, and an opportunity to celebrate. And I think part of that was with the fact that a lot of people had kind of written him off without Reynoso. And I think that they aren't asked about it as often anymore going forward. Obviously, it's a question that is persistently asked of management and manager Adrian Heath, but it's not so much to the players, and they're kind of able to go about their business. I think, they've asked Robin Lod, who's usually kind of a right-sided winger type, to come in and play centrally. And that wasn't really working out very much. So they've moved him back out to the right, and they've asked their new player, Sung Bin Jung, who they brought in as a U22 initiative signing, to come in and play that number 10 role. And he hasn't played a lot of football in the last couple of months. He was loaned out to Grasshopper in the Swiss League and wasn't playing a lot and had injuries. So he's still getting his feet underneath him. So they've had moving pieces to try to fill in for Reynoso on the field. And, it was a distraction early, then they kind of got over it. And now they're kind of trying to figure it out on the fly on the field.
And so what are they doing well right now. I mean, they've obviously won some games. You mentioned the St. Louis City, the win over St. Louis City, which was seemingly like a real statement win for them.
Yeah.
And so they're not, for the most part, you mentioned haven't been great at home, but they have been really good on the road.
Yeah, they started the year with 3 straight road victories. They went at Dallas, and Dallas like I said, beat them in the playoffs, and they got a couple other ones in between there. The St. Louis City one as well. And I think, defensively, they've been really good. They've really limited teams to have really any quality chances in a lot of games. I think they've done a really nice job with that. Now, in the last couple of games, they've been exposed on the wings and have suffered from crosses coming across the box. And that's how that's how Orlando scored both of their goals. That's how Kai Kamara got, one of his in Chicago. That's been a bit of an issue, and that's going to be something that's going to continue here this week because Kemar Lawrence, and their Jamaican left back, he was away from the team yesterday. I was up at training today. He is still away. He's got one of his family members is ill, and he's back dealing with that. So he's not with the team. So Zarek Valentin, I think, has shown himself to be a serviceable replacement in this league. Obviously, you guys know him from Cascadia for a long time. He's been in Houston in between that. So, yeah, I think that they've been pretty good defensively. They've been able to kind of ride their luck with set pieces. That's really kind of the majority of their goals have come on corner kicks and free kicks and PKs. I think they've got 3 of their 8 goals have come in open play. So that's just a testament to how they've kind of struggled to score a lot of goals and do it kind of in a traditional, normal, more likely way. So yeah, it's been kind of a mixed bag. They've tried to be strong defensively and have had some issues in recent weeks, but that's really been their calling card kind of throughout Adrian's time. He's known as a striker, but goals have been kind of league average, and their defense has been a little bit above average, and that's why they've been in the playoffs more times than not.
Yeah, you mentioned striker. That seems to have been a pretty consistent kind of question mark around Minnesota United. What is the current situation there at striker?
Yeah, it's a question mark. It's often a revolving door. It's been touch and go for a long time. So it's been Luis Amarilla and Mender Garcia. Those 2 guys have kind of rotated that spot. Adrian has gone to a 4-4-2 at times and played both of those guys up top. So that's been something that they've done as well. That was without Robin Lod in the lineup, and that was before Song Bin came into the team. Adrian likes to do a 4-2-3-1. On the road, he might go to a 4-3-3. He's obviously got a lot of respect for Seattle and the attacking threats. And usually when he has that kind of mindset against a team, that's maybe more of a 4-3-3. And Luis Amarilla and Mender Garcia have been the 2 guys that have rotated up top. Each of them have 2 goals. Mender has 2 in open play, and Luis has 2 PKs. And finishing has been an issue for them. They haven't been able to convert a lot of their chances in front of goal. And that's been something that's been an issue for both of those guys during their time at Minnesota. And it's been kind of a club-wide thing throughout their MLS tenure.
So on this show, we don't tend to do predictions, but what I do like to do is get a sense of your, like, a vibe check on the team. Like, how would you describe things are feeling around the team right now, and how confident are they coming into Seattle?
I think they feel pretty good. I think that they're, dealing with some poor home form. And I think there's a number of players on this team, the majority of them, they haven't done a whole lot of makeover to the roster, that have been around for a number of years and know how difficult it's been for them in Seattle. They're winless there, and it's been a spot that they've gotten smacked around quite a few times as well. So I think that's part of the vibe around the team. I think they've kind of generally been able to keep things pretty positive and encouraging, and big picture, they feel like they're in a good spot. But they haven't, like I said, they haven't scored a lot of goals. They haven't had a lot of success in Seattle. So, if you were to force me into a prediction, I wouldn't think highly or even a draw for what Minnesota might be able to do here on Saturday night.
Yeah, and I don't know how much this ever comes up, but Adrian Heath in particular has had a hard time against Seattle. I think he has one career win against them, which happened to be the win that ended the Sounders season record or MLS record home or unbeaten streak to start a season a couple years ago. So that is a nice feather in the cap, though, I suppose.
Yeah, I brought up their form in Seattle, and he came back with, well, everybody struggles in Seattle. And I said, like, okay, yeah, that might be true, but maybe not quite as much as you do.
Right. Yeah, I think I want to guess. I would guess his record is probably something like 0-7 in Seattle, his personal record.
Yeah, with Minnesota, it is. Yeah, for sure. Yep, including the playoff.
Probably I think it would be 0-9 in his two, because he came here twice, I think, with Orlando. But
yeah. I hadn't thought about it. I usually think about it in a Minnesota context. Yeah, obviously the Orlando shows the history is even longer.
Right. Yeah. No, it's been him and what's the other funny thing is that he and Brian Schmetzer seem to be really friendly. Like they seem to have some shared interests, and I guess they oftentimes get a glass of or get a bottle of wine together the night before a game or something like that. But
yeah, that's an Adrian Heath staple. He does that. He's done that for years. It's usually either the night before a game or right after the game. He'll usually invite if it's in Minnesota, he'll invite the opposing coach into the coach's office, and they'll have beers or have wine. He's a big Pinot Grigio guy, so that's usually something that they'll do to get together to kind of keep the congenial aspect of coaches. I know he does it with Gio Savarese, and I think Gio's a big port guy, I want to say.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so sometimes it's beer, sometimes it's wine, and yeah, Adrian likes to do that. He's obviously has a lot of respect for Brian and what he's done, and yeah, it's something that he tries to do with a lot of people around the league.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this. Obviously, you can find him at the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Where else can people read you?
Yeah, it's twincities.com online, and obviously I tweet a lot of updates on the team and on top of my other beats and links to stories on Twitter at Andy Greder.
Great. Well, thank you for doing this. I am Jeremiah Oshan, signing off for Nos Arietes. Remember, you'll never be out alone.